And on the kickoff, I ran down the field, tackled the ball carrier, and when I tackled him, I broke my neck and severely damaged my spinal cord. And as a result, I was instantly paralyzed. And I'm basically paralyzed now from the shoulders down. And the ref ran up to me, said, "Good tackle, son." And I called out, "I can't move." And I didn't know why. I never knew the ramifications of a spinal cord injury. I thought maybe I had just pinched a nerve in my neck and that within a few seconds, my feeling would return and my movement would return. So I really wasn't aware or didn't know what was happening at that point.
The time is October 31st, 1970. The place is Cornell University in upstate New York. The weather that afternoon was a light rain. It was a cool 49 degrees outside. He was a young athlete that year, about 20 years old. He was strong, smart, determined, and just beginning to shape a promising future. At a college football game, on a kickoff play, Ken Kunken charged down the field. He made a tackle, and in that instant, had his life changed forever. A broken neck and spinal cord injury, paralysis from the shoulders down. For most of us, that might have been the end of our story. But for Ken, it was just the beginning. After 9 months and 20 days in hospitals and rehabilitation centers, he returned to Cornell and he finished his degree. After that, he went on and earned multiple advanced degrees. He later became an attorney and later served a long career as a respected assistant district attorney. Along the way, he built a family, became a father, all the while inspiring everyone who crossed his path. In this conversation, Ken, now 75 years old, shares what went through his mind while lying on the field that rainy afternoon. He also shares when he realized he may never walk again, and the emotional toll of spending nearly a year in the hospital and recovering. We talk about the relentless support of his family, the challenges of returning to an inaccessible campus, and the determination it took to finish school and start a career when few believed he could. And we dive into his philosophy on resilience, keeping expectations high, and seeing the good in people. Lessons that I believe can challenge and inspire all of us. Ken Kunken, thank you for being with me today. So the purpose of this interview is to hopefully gather some information from you to probe your mind and your heart and your soul to find out how you did that and what makes you you. So to start, you were born in Long Island. Is that correct?
Right.
Yes, sir. So you're born in Long Island. Your mom died when you were young. You had a brother that was a couple of years older than you. Growing up, you did well in school. You were athletic as well. You went on to Cornell, where you majored in industrial engineering. Along the way, growing up, you had a loving family and a loving extended family, it sounds like.
Right.
At 20 years old, you were playing football, lightweight football.
Correct.
At Cornell, and you were going against Columbia University. Take me back to that day. Tell me what you remember.
Okay. Actually, it was raining lightly outside, and we were in the first quarter in a game against Columbia University. We had just scored, so we were leading now 16-0, and I was in on the kickoff to kick off now to Columbia after our score. That was a play I normally wouldn't have been in on, but on the first play of the game, one of our players was injured. He had what I believe was a concussion, and I was put in on that play to take his place. And on the kickoff, I ran down the field, tackled the ball carrier, and when I tackled him, I broke my neck and severely damaged my spinal cord. And as a result, I was instantly paralyzed. And I'm basically paralyzed now from the shoulders down. I have just a little bit of movement in my left arm, but nothing in my fingers or wrist. And on the right side of my body, I could just shrug my shoulder a bit.
So yeah, you're a quadriplegic technically.
Right, correct.
After you hit the other player, when you woke up, what do you remember in that moment?
Okay, firstly, I never lost consciousness. I was conscious the whole time. When I hit the player, I felt like there was a strong electric shock shooting through my body. And instantly, I lost feeling below my shoulders. So I was lying on the field, and nobody initially knew I was injured. The ref ran up to me, said, "Good tackle, son." The players were changing field, so now our defense was coming on the field. Columbia's offense was coming on. And I called out, "I can't move." And I didn't know why. I didn't know the ramifications of a spinal cord injury. I didn't even know that's what I had. And eventually, team doctors came out on the field, saw it was very serious, called for an ambulance and a stretcher.
Did you feel pain?
Initially, when I first made impact, I wouldn't say I felt a lot of pain. What I felt was this electric shock. But as I was lying on my back, initially I was like in the fetal position. As I was lying on my back, it felt like my shoulder pads rose up and were digging into my neck, and that was very painful.
And they wheeled you off and they took you to the hospital.
Well, what happened is first they put me on a stretcher to carry me off the field. This was before the ambulance arrived. There was not an ambulance at the game. And from what I was later told, they probably shouldn't have moved me at all until the ambulance came. When they lifted me up on the stretcher, it felt as if they were just carrying my head off the field because I had no feeling below my neck at the time. And it was the strangest feeling. It felt like I had been decapitated and they were just carrying my neck off the field.
What emotion did you feel? Do you remember what you felt emotionally in that moment?
Yeah, I mean, it was obviously very scary because I didn't know what was happening. I didn't know why I couldn't feel below my neck. Once again, I never knew the ramifications of a spinal cord injury. I thought maybe I had just pinched a nerve in my neck and that within a few seconds my feeling would return and my movement would return. So I really wasn't aware or didn't know what was happening at that point.
So as you go to the hospital, you go to bed that night, it maybe starts sinking in that it may not come back. You may be paralyzed the rest of your life. When you wake up the next morning with that kind of settling in, what emotions are you going through then?
Well, firstly, I asked the doctors repeatedly, will I be able to walk again? And it was a number of different doctors, and they each either wouldn't answer my question or said they didn't know. And then initially, pain started setting in, and I was in a lot of pain, and they didn't want to give me any pain medication till I arrived at the hospital. And once I arrived at the hospital in Ithaca, where Cornell is located, they saw the injury was not only very serious, but they weren't equipped to handle an injury such as mine. So they put me back in an ambulance and sent me to a hospital in Elmira, which was about an hour away. So basically what they did for me in the hospital in Ithaca was they had to cut off my uniform, which was very difficult, especially to take my helmet off, which was very tight fitting, and to try and do it without moving my neck at all to cause further damage. So during this whole time, I was now in a lot of pain and still didn't know what exactly was happening with me.
When did you start realizing that you may not ever be able to walk again?
It took quite a while. It wasn't instantly, it wasn't a day or two. I kept thinking that, once the shock of my spinal cord injury wore off, I would be up and walking again. And I had heard a little bit about after a spinal cord injury, you go through a period of what's called spinal shock. And that may last different amounts of time. But I thought within a day or two, maybe longer, I would be up walking again. And I was told that they were planning to do an operation on my neck to stabilize my neck. They were going to actually take some bone fragments from my leg and fuse it in my neck to stabilize the break. And I thought once they do that, I'll immediately be able to move again. So at the time, I had heard I had broken my neck. I didn't hear that I had damaged my spinal cord.
So you're in the hospital for 9 months and 20 days.
Right?
Some time in there, you start realizing that I'm not going to recover. I'm not going to get my feeling back in my body. Here you are 20, you're in college, you're studying an engineering degree, you got your whole life ahead of you. This tragic accident totally stops that in its tracks, right? And I've heard you talk about a lot of times people that are quadriplegic, they don't really continue trying to fulfill their dreams or live their full life. So you're in that situation in those 9 months and 20 days. Do you recall a point where you said, I'm not going to let this stop me. I'm going to continue on with my education and my life?
Well, that took quite a while. And when you say I was in the hospital 9 months and 20 days, first I was in the hospital in Ithaca, then in Elmira, then I was moved to a hospital in Oceanside, my hometown where I grew up. And then I was moved to a hospital combination rehab center in New York City. So during that time, I met with many, many different doctors, many therapists, and they all seemed reluctant to tell me what the ramifications of my injury was and whether I would ever be able to walk again. And it took a while before it really sunk in that I would not be able to walk again, that I would not regain my movement. I was just very fortunate that I had a very supportive family that was by my side the entire time and kept reassuring me that there was still a lot I could do with my life. And if need be, they said they would act as my arms and legs to make sure I could still do everything I wanted to do in life.
I think that as I was learning about your story, I think that family has so much to do with your success. It sounded like you had such a support system for you once you went through this injury, and that it sounds like you still have. And that just seems like it would be an important part of your life.
Very important. I was really fortunate with that. And they kept encouraging me first, obviously that my condition would hopefully improve. But they also said that while I'll be very physically limited, intellectually, the injury did not affect my mind at all. And they were still encouraging me to go back to school and make something out of my life by using now my head rather than the rest of my body and use my intellectual ability.
Now, I read that you had your brother that's 2 years older than you, had
Right.
polio in one of his legs, right? So, and polio, for people who don't know, it's somewhat of a partial paralysis. Muscles don't really work as well as they used to, but it's not. There's degrees of it, right? So his polio was before your accident, I believe.
No, what actually happened was he didn't have it before my accident. Oh yeah, he did. I'm sorry. What happened was I was born in 1950, which was during the polio epidemic. And less than a month after I was born, my brother and my mother contracted polio. My brother fortunately had a mild case that seemed to be confined to one of his legs, and he underwent physical therapy for about 6 months and totally recovered. He later became a terrific athlete. But unfortunately, my mother's condition worsened, and less than a month after I was born, my mother died from polio. My brother fortunately totally recovered and became a very good athlete. But my mother initially had to be put in what they called an iron lung, and she died very shortly after that.
Very sad. Your brother and his polio, did his example influence you at all when you go through this paralysis?
I didn't think about it at all back then because he had totally recovered from his polio when I was just a small child. So I wasn't even aware that he was going for physical therapy at the time because I was just a baby. So no, that did not. But when I was in the rehab facility, I met many other individuals who had spinal cord injuries who were now living with paralysis. And it was particularly depressing because most of them didn't seem to be doing much with their lives. And the medical profession back then did not seem to be encouraging them to go back to school or to try and find a job. So you didn't see a lot of people with at least paralysis to my extent, where I couldn't move my arms as well as my legs. You rarely saw somebody in my condition back on a college campus or working or out in public at all.
How did that make you feel when you saw these other people with paralysis and and saw that you had it worse than a lot of them? How did that make you feel?
It was devastating because here I saw people that had been hurt far longer than I had been that were basically just sitting home and not doing anything productive with their lives. And I really worried that that's what my future would look like. And I was determined, as I say, through a lot of encouragement and help from my family, to do more with my life than just sit home.
And you didn't sit at home. You go back to college. You go back to Cornell, right? You finish that degree in engineering. Then you go on to get a Master's of Arts degree in education, a Master's of Education degree in psychology from Columbia University. And then later you went on to law school, where you obtained your degree from Hofstra University School of Law. So it doesn't sound like it slowed you down very much.
Well, let me just add a few things to that, and I appreciate you saying that. When I went back to Cornell, this was about 20 years before the Americans with Disabilities Act took effect. So very few facilities were wheelchair accessible. And Cornell was a particularly inaccessible campus. Most of its buildings had steps in front of them, and there was not one ramp or curb cut on the entire campus. So my first day of class, I had to be pulled up or bounced down close to 100 steps just to attain, go to my classes that first day. I was fortunate that I had a lot of help from fellow classmates, my fraternity brothers, my football teammates that helped me get through. So it probably wasn't the wisest decision to go back to Cornell, such a particularly inaccessible campus. But I thought I wanted to resume my life just the way it had been before my injury. But industrial engineering really didn't seem like a viable field. I mean, this was well before they had laptop computers. And while I graduated with a degree in engineering, based on the recommendation of a psychology professor, which, I had taken an elective in psychology, I decided to pursue a career in counseling. And through his help, that's when I went, obtained those 2 master's degrees, decided to look for a job in the rehabilitation counseling field, and no one would hire me. Here, think about this. I had 2 degrees from Cornell, one from Columbia, 3 prestigious Ivy League degrees, 2 master's degrees, and no one would hire me. It seemed like everyone felt I was just too disabled to work. And I looked for a job for a year and sent out more than 200 resumes. Finally, one company on Long Island gave me the opportunity to show what I could do. And that was a company called Abilities Incorporated, which was part of what was then called the Human Resources Center and is now called the Viscardi Center after its founder, Dr. Henry Viscardi Jr. And they hired me to work as a vocational rehabilitation counselor for other individuals who had disabilities.
So it seems that that was just another challenge for you that you've overcome. You know, you go through this accident, you go back to college, you face these troubles at school trying to move around. They don't have wheel accessible classrooms, and then you get those 2 degrees, those further degrees, and then you go out for a job, and then you're challenged again because nobody's going to hire you.
In fact, I might add that when I started my second master's degree, this one at Columbia, I met with my advisor who told me even after I obtained my degree, probably I would have difficulty getting a job. And there's a good chance no one would hire me just because of my disability.
So what do you say to people that are looking to, let's say they're going to interview with someone with a disability like you? What advice would you give them in regards to hiring that person or considering hiring that person?
Well, first of all, they need to look at a person's abilities rather than their disability. There's an awful lot people can do despite what certain limitations they may have. They need to look at the entire person. They need to look at the motivation of that person, the desire that they have to achieve and make something of their lives, and look for the positive in that person. Now it's a lot more common to see people with disabilities in the workplace. Back then, it wasn't very common. And I think people got caught up in looking at what limitations someone might have as opposed to what abilities, as well as that they may have a different way of approaching the same type of work, doing the same type of job, but being able to do it a little bit differently.
So you decided to go to law school after completing those master's degrees, kind of a change in path for you there. Like I said, you received your degree from Hofstra University School of Law. Why did you become a lawyer?
That's an interesting question. For one, my brother Steve, who's 2 years older than me, was working as a lawyer at the time. He was actually working as a public defender. And I used to go and watch him in court and found it very interesting. But secondly, at my job as a rehab counselor, I was given different duties and kept given more and more duties. And one of my responsibilities was to speak at conferences before groups and organizations concerning affirmative action and non-discrimination with respect to people with disabilities. And often after my talks, I would be asked questions. And while I would do my best to respond appropriately, I was always careful to caution the questioners they should really speak with a lawyer about their concerns. And I guess it didn't take long before I started to think, there's no reason why I couldn't become that lawyer. So I left my job as a rehab counselor, which I enjoyed very much, and went to law school.
So you became a DA in Nassau County?
I worked there as an assistant district attorney, and I absolutely loved the work. And if I might tell you a little bit about the way I began, I went to law school, completed law school in the standard 3-year time period. I passed the difficult New York State bar exam the first time that I took it. I began my work in the DA's office by going through a very intensive 4-week training program where they taught us all aspects of trying a case from a prosecutor's perspective. And I was so proud to go to court my first day, and I couldn't fit through the swinging doorways in the courtroom. They were too narrow to let me get through in my electric wheelchair. Eventually, and it took a while, they widened all of the doorways for me.
Wow. Yeah. So even then you faced challenges with your first job as a lawyer.
Right. And I was told later that one of the supervisors, who didn't know me at the time, questioned why I was even hired because, as he put it, I can't even write. Well, he later spoke with me and told me how impressed he was with the work that I was doing, and really congratulated me on how well I was doing at the job.
Wow, that's and I believe you retired from that job recently. You were the deputy bureau chief of the county court trial bureau, right?
Right. I was promoted a number of times in my job, where I eventually became one of the deputy bureau chiefs, where I was helping supervise more than 25 other assistant district attorneys. And I stopped working full time in 2016 after working there for more than 33 years, and then continued part time up until last year for an additional 8 years. So, all told, I worked there for more than 40 years.
So you faced skepticism about your abilities. Like there's a lot of people that face that, right? With an injury like yours. How did you respond to those skepticisms?
Responded by performing very well at the job. I showed them not only could I could work well. And as a result, I was promoted a number of times in my job. I might add that while I was working there, I was given an award by the Court Officers Benevolent Association as the Outstanding Assistant District Attorney one year. And I believe they gave me that award because they believed that I had a very positive impact, not just on my office, but on them and other court personnel. I was later given an award by the district attorney's office. And in fact, 2 years ago, um, the district attorney chose to actually name an award after me, the Kenneth J. Kunken Award, that is to be given annually now, the only award they ever give annually, to the outstanding assistant district attorney every year.
Wow, you must have had a big impact on that office.
Well, I'm very proud and fortunate to say that that seems to be the case. And I was told on a number of times that when assistant DAs left the office, they go through what they call an exit interview, where they're asked what they liked best about the job, what they thought could be improved about the job. And on a number of occasions, the assistant said the best part of their job was meeting, working with, and getting to know me. And I believe they said that because they were talking about meeting and working with somebody with a severe disability. Because unless they had a close relative with a disability, they rarely came in daily contact with somebody with a disability. And they found that that helped motivate and inspire them to do a better job. And I really appreciate getting that type of response from my colleagues.
Wow. You've said that you believe in keeping expectations high of others and yourself. Why is that?
Well, I believe people had such limited expectations of what I could do. And I find people's expectations often limit what people eventually do with their lives, because people's performance, I believe, often rises and falls based upon what others expect of them to do. So it's so important that you believe in yourself, that you don't believe in the naysayers, that you believe you can accomplish anything you set your mind to. I know once I was shown basically a caption in a little cartoon where they showed a pussycat looking into a mirror and seeing a reflection. He'd see himself as a lion. And that's how you need to feel about yourself. You need to believe you're the lion and that you have control of your life and that you could do anything you set your mind to.
Is there a moment from your career that sticks with you most vividly?
Well, there are obviously a number of them, but I would say the way I was initially looked at when I started the job, and eventually how my colleagues, my supervisors, the court personnel all started treating me with such enormous respect that it was wonderful to see here I was, a person using an electric wheelchair, being almost totally paralyzed. And here people now looking at me with enormous respect and treating me like not only was I a true professional, but somebody that they could turn to for help or advice. And the fact that I was promoted a number of times. I might add that the current district attorney, a woman by the name of Ann Donnelly, is a woman I, in fact, used to supervise when she was a new ADA. And the fact that she then chose to name this annual award after me meant an enormous amount to me and how I feel about how others have viewed the work I've done.
Now, I think Anna is there right
Right.
next
My
to
wife,
you.
Anna, is sitting to my right, just off camera. And that's a story in itself.
Yeah,
I
tell me
mean,
about Anna and the story of your triplets.
okay, well, I was very fortunate that when I was looking for a personal care attendant to help me with my daily needs, I had put an ad in the newspaper. Anna, who's from Poland, saw the ad. She was here at the time. And the ad that I put was in the Polish Daily News because I used to get a lot of positive response from that newspaper. And Anna responded to the ad. And while she had never done this type of work before, um, she responded. And she actually came to this country to learn English so she could improve her English speaking skills. And she thought that while she never did this type of work before, perhaps working with me on a daily basis would help her be more exposed to the English language and improve her English speaking skills. So she came for the interview. Fortunately, I had the good sense to hire her. And the more time I spent with Anna, the more our relationship developed into first a very close friendship and then eventually into a romantic relationship. And in 2003, uh, we got married. And that really, really changed my life. And when we decided to get married, Anna said that she wanted to have my baby. Now, this was really seemed impossible to me at the time. I had been paralyzed for more than 30 years, and I was already in my 50s. But we looked into various options, including in vitro fertilization, and we're very excited to learn it still may be possible for me to father a child. So we pursued in vitro fertilization, and through the miracle of science, Anna became pregnant. And on January 24th, 2005, I was present in the delivery room. Think about this. I was present in the delivery room when my wife Anna gave birth to triplets. We have three beautiful sons, Joey, Jimmy, and Timmy. They're now 20 years old and in their junior year at three separate colleges in upstate New York.
Or you have to be so proud of
I
those
sure am.
sons.
You bet. Best part of my life.
Wow, that is incredible. No grandkids yet?
Not yet. I think the
Mhm.
boys still need to get a girlfriend first,
I got you, yeah.
but they're doing great.
That is incredible. Wow, so a father when you probably thought you were never gonna be a father.
I never thought in my wildest dreams I would be a father. I never thought I'd ever get married. I had difficulty even believing that women would still be interested in me. I was very fortunate. Things worked out not only for the best, but incredible. The life I'm leading now is absolutely incredible. I'm a very happy person.
Wow, very blessed. So you had this bad accident, right? People listening may say their life is over after an accident like that. Now you've lived 55 years, right? Since the accident. Is there anything positive in your life that has come from the accident?
Well, absolutely. Obviously, first of all, my incredible wife and my three beautiful, wonderful sons. I never would have met my wife, Anna, had it not been for my accident. As I indicated, She responded to an ad to be my personal care attendant. So meeting Anna, having these three wonderful children, is the best part of my life. That never would have happened had I not been injured. But I met so many other individuals as well. And the people that I met at the Viscardi Center have really done a lot to change my life as well, given me the opportunity to help others. And I'm so proud to say I am now on their board of directors, and I very proudly serve in that capacity.
So you've experienced life different than a lot of folks because you need help doing a lot of things that you do. What have you learned about people, perhaps that someone who didn't live a life like you doesn't know? What do you know that a lot of us don't know about people?
You know, most people are not only really, really good people, but they also really, really want to help when they can. A lot of them are just not sure how they can help or what to say or do to ask how they could be of help or service to you. But they really want to help, and they're really good people. And uh, when they can join you and help you accomplish something, they feel better as well. And I know that made a difference in my life when I was finally able to help others. It made me feel better about myself. And you know, these days, there's a lot of controversy over what they call diversity, equity, and inclusion, right? The current administration seems to have a negative feeling about DEI and helping others. I believe I have a very different message. I've been told by so many people during the last 55 years that meeting me and seeing what somebody who's a little different than them, whether it be through disability or other ways, such as, you know, my wife coming from another country, has really made an impact on them and made them feel better about themselves. I think diversity, equity, inclusion is a very good thing, a very positive thing. I think it helps everyone, not just any particular individual, but everybody who comes in contact with that particular individual. I think my injury has helped me see the good in everybody rather than the negatives. And I think what I'm seeing is absolutely wonderful. People out there are great. They want to help when they can. They often don't know how they can help and may sometimes be too shy or, you know, hesitant to ask. But most people want to help and do the right thing.
So we wrote a book. I Dream of Things That Never Were, the Ken Kunken story. I read someone wrote a review of it here, and I'm going to read it to you. Ken Kunken's gripping book tells his story of moving through the darkest experience any young person can live through and turning it into something completely inspiring for all of us. Ken's story teaches us all that with the right attitude and with friends and family, we can overcome even the greatest of difficulties. And the only limits are those we place on ourselves or those we allow others to place on us. This book is well written in tight prose. The pages seem to turn by themselves. I truly hope someone makes it into a movie someday. So, Ken, why did you write that book?
Okay. When I was first hurt and now in the hospital, I was injured now 6 months when a friend of my Aunt Lorraine's by the name of Albert Meglin came to visit me in the rehab facility and thought, one, it would be good therapy for me to talk about my experiences and have it written down, but also be very informative to others about what the rehabilitation process was like and what going through a spinal cord injury meant and was like. And he used to come and visit me in the hospital once a week for a number of months until I left, went back to school, and then started working on it again sporadically to write about my life. And I hoped just what that review said, that it could help inspire and motivate others to do more with their lives. I mean, when I was injured, I didn't know of any role models that I could look to for hope or inspiration that somebody with this type of injury could still do a lot with their lives. And I wanted it to convey to people, no matter what disability they had, no matter what challenges they were facing, that there's a lot they could do to overcome the adversity in their life and still go on and to succeed and have a useful, productive, and rewarding and happy life. And through my wife's help, we used to sit down by her laptop computer and I would dictate to her. And it took quite a while to eventually complete my book. And it was actually published 2 years ago. It's right on the shelf right behind me. And if I might just add how I came upon that title, 6 months after my injury, I was asked to testify before a United States Health Subcommittee chaired by Senator Edward Kennedy. And 8 days after my testimony, Senator Kennedy sent me a glass paperweight in the mail that had an inscription on it that the senator said his late brother Robert Kennedy liked very much. And the inscription read, "Some men see things as they are and say why. I dream of things that never were and say why not." And that's where I got the title of my book, I Dream of Things That Never Were, the Ken Kunken story.
That's a beautiful title, a beautiful story.
Thank you.
So you have 3 sons now. They're 20. They're in college. What lessons did you try and teach your boys about resilience and perspective?
Well, certainly one, to never give up. Everybody faces challenges in their life, but it's how we react and handle those challenges that make all the difference. You can't just sit back and wait for something good to come to you. You have to go out and work for it and make something of your life. But in addition, whenever you have the opportunity, it's so important to help others, right? That's not only your obligation and responsibility, but it's a good thing to do. It's the right thing to do. And there's an awful lot we can do together if we're all on the same page and want to help each other succeed. And what I like is on my 3 sons, you never see any sibling rivalry. They root for each other. They want the best for their brothers. They want the best for everybody around them. And as a result, I constantly get compliments about what terrific young men they are.
Wow. They sound like they're some incredible sons.
They really are.
I have 3 sons myself, and I'm so proud of all of them, and like you, try and teach them as much that I've learned from my life, and hopefully they take a little bit of it with them.
Yes, and I might add, all 3 of my boys are martial artists. All 3 of them are second-degree black belts in Taekwondo. And in their training in the martial arts, it is emphasized to be respectful, to be courteous, to help others, and to work hard to make something of your lives. And I think that helped a lot in their development.
That kind of tees off into a little question I wanted to ask you. So you had your injury and had paralysis. They're in martial arts. I wanted to know if you discouraged any type of sporting or martial arts in their life, and it doesn't sound like it.
Well, no, I didn't. Firstly, people ask me would I let my children play football. My children never wanted to play football. They wouldn't even watch it when it was on television. And that was nothing that, I encouraged or discouraged. I would still watch it every weekend. But they never wanted anything to do with football. But I thought it very important that they still always be in very good physical shape and to work out and make sure they were in the best shape they could be. And they chose to pursue the martial arts. And I'm thrilled that they did because I think it is great training, both mentally as well as physically. And I'm so proud that they're doing it, that they're in tip-top physical shape, and that they, in fact, later became instructors at their martial arts studio. And they were instructing other people in martial arts. And it's just great to see how they deal with others and try and help others.
I have another question here. Let me see how I'm going to phrase it. So you're 75, your sons are 20.
Right. Quite a difference.
Quite a difference. You lived a full life. Your boys have a full life ahead of them still. What do you hope your sons, and then hopefully one day your grandchildren, remember about your life?
I hope they remember that I was an individual who never gave up, who believed there was still a lot I could do, regardless of what challenges I faced, but also to be grateful for the wonderful family and friends that we have, because there's nothing I could have done on my own without a lot of help. And when you help each other, it not only helps that individual person, but it makes you feel better about yourself and helps you to grow as a person. And there's an awful lot we can do and achieve if we all work together towards a certain goal. And I want them to be good, respectful, and that everybody, regardless of their physical condition or intellectual condition, has the same hopes and dreams as everybody else. We all want to live a useful, productive, rewarding, and happy life. And we need to recognize that in everyone that we meet and try and help people whenever we can so that they can achieve that as well.
Final question. When you look back on your life, what are you most proud of?
Well, obviously, I'm most proud of my children, but I'm also most proud of the fact that I didn't let my injuries stopping me from going on and doing everything that I really wanted to do in my life. And I'm very proud of the fact, too, that I've been told on a number of occasions that what I have done has helped inspire and motivate people to do more with their lives. And I find that that is so important, but so helpful for me to hear, to know that I've made a difference in other people's lives, that there's a lot everyone can do if they work hard. Don't just sit back and wait for something good to happen, but take responsibility to make it happen. And I'm very proud of the fact that my children are very proactive, that they work hard to make not only their lives productive, but to help everybody else along the way when they can.
Well, Ken, I see your story, your life, and to me it's it's inspiring. You go through challenges and you seem to overcome them. This paralysis, you didn't let that stop you. You go to college, you get a degree, you try and find a job, have difficulty, and but that doesn't stop you. You you want to help people more. You go to law school looking to do that, and you have difficulties practicing, getting through the door, actually doing the job. But that didn't stop you. You inspire people all along the way. Some of us walk around, we can use our arms and legs, but we don't have that drive. When I see your story, I picture that phrase that says it's not about the size of the dog in the fight, it's about the size of the fight in the dog. And I think your life is a testament to that. That brings me so much inspiration. I hope a lot of people, anyone listening to this, will find a little bit of what you have and realize that perhaps we all have it within ourselves. So Ken Kunken, thank you so much for being with me today. I really appreciate your time, and I'll send people to your website, and hopefully people will buy your book.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I might add that my book is not only available in the hardcover, but also in the Kindle version, as well as an audiobook that I narrated myself. But I just have to emphasize again, I had a lot of help every step of the way. And without everybody's help, I never would have been able to do what I was able to do. And I'm very grateful that I was given the opportunity to show what I could do. Thank you for having me as your guest.
Thank you, Ken. Thank you. Have a good day.
You as well.